The stars belonged to 6 species. They had lived together for 3,000 years, sharing knowledge and trading resources across 47 different systems. Peace was normal. War was a distant memory, something their ancestors spoke about in history lessons, but everyone knew the old stories. Every child in the galaxy heard them before sleep. Stories about the species that came before, the ones who built strange structures on dead planets, the ones who disappeared without explanation, the ones called humans. Most people thought humans were just stories, make-believe creatures invented to scare young ones into behaving. Some scholars argued about whether humans ever existed at all. A few believed humans were real but destroyed themselves in some terrible war before they could reach the stars. On the Quellan homeworld, parents told their children about the violent humans who fought each other over everything. On Drellian colony ships, the insect-like species whispered about humans who came from a death world so dangerous that it made them unstoppable warriors. The Vrexians, proud reptilian soldiers, laughed at human myths and said no species could be as fierce as their own empire. Commander Taemin stood on the bridge of the constellation, watching alien ships move through space on his displays. He had been watching them for 6 months now, learning their languages, studying their cultures, understanding their problems. The constellation floated in the darkness between stars hidden from every sensor. Human technology was different from what the galaxy used. The aliens relied on energy signatures and heat detection. Human ships were built to be invisible, cold, and quiet like ghosts. Captain G1, Taemin said, turning to the woman in the command chair. The Vrexian Empire just took another system. The Council did nothing. Captain G1 nodded slowly. She was 42 years old with sharp eyes that missed nothing. 20 years in the military had taught her patience and caution. How many systems does that make? 3 in 2 years, Taemin replied. He pulled up a star map showing Vrexian expansion. Red zones spread like infection across the display. The Galactic Council keeps trying to negotiate. The Vrexians keep taking territory. Dr. Haen looked up from her workstation. She had been translating alien broadcasts for months, building dictionaries of 6 different languages. Her desk was covered with notes about alien biology, culture, and history. The Council is afraid, she said. Vrexian weapons are more advanced than anything the other species have. Their shields can stop most energy weapons. Most, G1 said. But not kinetic weapons, Taemin smiled slightly. The galaxy had forgotten about simple bullets and missiles. They relied completely on plasma and lasers. Human weapons would surprise them. Captain, called out Lieutenant Kyung-soo from the pilot station, we have movement. A Quellan science ship just entered this sector. Everyone on the bridge tensed. For 6 months they had avoided detection. The constellation had watched from the shadows while humanity learned about galactic civilization. Earth's government wanted information before making contact. They wanted to understand who they would be dealing with. Distance? Ji-won asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing, Kyung-soo said. The young pilot's hands moved over his controls. Captain, they're scanning. They might detect our ship. Ji-won looked at Taemin. He was her tactical officer, her advisor. She trusted his judgment. Commander? Taemin studied the sensor data. The Quellan ship was small, probably just a research vessel with a crew of 10 or 12. Quellans were the diplomatic species, the ones who led the Galactic Council. If humanity had to make first contact with anyone, Quellans were the best choice. Let them find us, Taemin said. Dr. Haeun stood up quickly. Are you sure? Earth Command wanted us to gather more information before revealing ourselves. We have enough information, Taemin said. He gestured at the star map showing Vrexian expansion. The galaxy is headed toward war whether they know it or not. The Vrexians won't stop with 3 systems, and the Council can't stop them alone. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them we're making first contact. Lieutenant Kyung-soo, drop our stealth systems. Let the Quellans see us. The bridge lights brightened as the constellation's systems came online. On the sensors, Taemin watched the Quellan ship suddenly change course. They had detected the human vessel. They were moving closer to investigate. They're hailing us, said the communications officer. Put it through, Ji-won ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of the Quellan ship. The aliens looked almost human at first glance, but their skin had a blue tint, and their eyes were larger, adapted for lower light. The Quellan captain stared at the screen with obvious shock. Dr. Haeun stepped forward. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times. In perfect Quellan language, she said, "Greetings. We come in peace. We are humans." The Quellan captain's face went through several expressions: shock, disbelief, fear. Finally, he found his voice. "Humans, but you're extinct. You're a myth. We are very much alive," Haun said calmly. "We have been watching your civilization for some time. We believe it is time to introduce ourselves." "This is impossible," the Quellan said. He looked at someone off-screen, speaking rapidly in his own language. Then he looked back at the humans. "The council must know about this immediately. This changes everything." "We agree," Ji-won said, moving to stand beside Haun. "We would like to speak with your council. We have something to offer them." "What could you possibly offer?" the Quellan asked. He wasn't being rude, just genuinely confused. Taemin stepped into view. "Help. The Vrexian Empire is expanding. Your council cannot stop them with words." "We can." The Quellan captain laughed, though it sounded nervous. "You have one ship. The Vrexians have hundreds. What could one ship do?" "You would be surprised," Ji-won said. "Arrange a meeting with the council. Tell them humanity wants to talk." After the communication ended, the bridge crew relaxed slightly. Kyung-soo let out a breath he had been holding. "Well, that's it. We just announced humanity to the galaxy." "There's no going back now," Hyun said. She looked worried and excited at the same time. Taemin returned to his station and began preparing files. Information about human history, carefully edited to show their strength without revealing too much. Details about their technology, enough to prove they were advanced without giving away military secrets. Evidence of Earth's location, encrypted and secured. 3 hours later, Earth Command sent their response. Admiral Park read the message to the crew over the ship's intercom. "You have done well. Proceed with first contact. Remember, you represent all of humanity. The galaxy thought we were myths. Show them the truth. Show them we are real. Show them we are strong. Good luck, Constellation." 2 days passed while the Quellan ship escorted them to the council station. It was a massive structure orbiting a neutral star, built by all 6 species working together. Ships from different worlds docked at various ports. The station was a symbol of galactic cooperation. As the constellation approached, Taemin wondered what the council would think when they saw humans for the first time. Would they welcome humanity? Would they fear them? Would they try to control them? He looked at Captain Ji-won. She stood straight and confident, ready for whatever came next. Beside her, Dr. Hyun checked her translation notes one last time. Around the bridge, the crew prepared for docking. "Here we go," Kyung-soo said quietly. The constellation slid into the docking port. Through the windows, they could see aliens gathered to watch. Word had spread quickly. The mythical humans had arrived. Taemin checked his uniform one last time. In a few minutes, he and Haun would walk into the council chambers. They would stand before 6 alien species and prove that humanity was real. They would offer their help against the Vrexians. They would ask for a place in galactic civilization. The myths were about to become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council chamber was enormous. 6 different species had built it together, each adding their own architecture and style. The result was beautiful and strange, a mix of curves and angles that somehow worked together. High windows let in starlight from 3 different directions. Taemin and Dr. Haun walked through the main entrance. Every alien in the room turned to stare at them. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. A few looked angry. The council sat in a semicircle on raised platforms. Each species had their own section. The Quellans sat in the center, their blue skin catching the light. To their left, the Drellians clustered together, their insect-like bodies clicking and chittering nervously. The Vrexians lounged on the right, their reptilian faces showing nothing but contempt. 3 other species filled the remaining sections. The Forans, small furry beings who controlled most trade routes. The Celtic aquatic creatures in specialized water tanks. And the Morvanes, tall and thin with crystalline skin that reflected light. "Approach," said the Quellan speaker. She was old. Her blue skin faded with age, but her voice was strong. Taemin and Haun walked to the center of the room. They had practiced this walk 100 times on the constellation. Confident but not aggressive, calm but not weak. They represented all of humanity in this moment. "State your names and purpose," the speaker said. "I am Commander Taemin of the Earth vessel Constellation. Taman said clearly. "This is Dr. Ha-Yun, our chief xenobiologist. We come as representatives of humanity." The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens spoke in 6 different languages all at once. Some stood up. Others gestured wildly. The Drellian section buzzed like an angry hive. The speaker raised her hand for silence. It took several minutes before the chamber quieted. "Humanity is extinct," she said. "Everyone knows this." "Who are you, really?" Dr. Ha-Yun stepped forward. "We understand your doubt. For 3,000 years you have believed we were gone. But humanity never went extinct. We simply had not yet reached the stars when you began exploring. We developed slower than other species. Our world was harsh and difficult, but we survived, and now we are here." A Vrexian general stood up. He was massive, over 7 feet tall, covered in dark red scales. "This is a trick," he growled. "Some species trying to gain advantage by pretending to be the legendary humans. I demand proof." "What proof would satisfy you?" Taman asked. The Vrexian smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Ancient texts describe humans as violent warriors from a death world. They say humans could survive anywhere and fight anyone. Prove you are these warriors." Taman felt Ha-Yun tense beside him. This was dangerous territory. But he kept his voice calm. "We are not here to prove ourselves through violence. We are here to offer assistance." "Assistance?" A foreign merchant laughed. The small furry alien chittered with amusement. "You have 1 ship. What assistance could you possibly offer?" Captain Jiwan's voice came through the chamber speakers. She was still aboard the Constellation, watching through video feeds. "We offer what you need most. Military expertise. The Vrexian Empire has taken 3 systems in 2 years. Your negotiations have failed. Your defensive fleet cannot match their technology. You need help and we can provide it." The Vrexian general laughed loudly. "You think your single ship can challenge the might of the Vrexian Empire? You are delusional." "Perhaps," Jiwan said. "Or perhaps you are overconfident. Would you be willing to test that confidence?" The chamber went silent. The Vrexian general stopped laughing. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What are you suggesting?" "A demonstration," Jiwan said. "Choose a target. Give us a task. If we succeed, you accept that humanity is real and capable. If we fail, we leave your space forever and never return." The council members looked at each other. Whispered conversations spread through the room. The speaker raised her hand again. "The council will discuss this proposal. Please wait outside." Taman and Ha-Yun bowed slightly and left the chamber. Outside they found a waiting area with strange alien furniture. Ha-Yun sat down carefully on something that looked like a bench but curved in odd ways. "That was intense," she said quietly. "They're afraid," Taman said. He stood by the window, looking out at the stars. "Some of them fear we're really humans. Others fear we're imposters trying to trick them. And a few fear what it means either way." The Vrexian general seemed eager for a test, Ha-Yun observed. "He wants to humiliate us," Taman said. "He thinks we're weak. He wants to prove it in front of the whole council." 2 hours passed before they were called back. When they entered the chamber, the mood had changed. The aliens looked tense, like a decision had been made, but not everyone agreed with it. The speaker stood. "The council has decided to accept your proposal. We will give you a test. But know this, if you fail, you must leave galactic space immediately and never return. Do you accept these terms?" "We accept," Taman said. The Vrexian general stood, looking pleased with himself. "There is a Quellan colony called Varesh. It is small, only 10,000 civilians. They have no military defenses. In 2 days I will send a raiding force to take that colony. If you can defend it, we will acknowledge your claim to be human and consider your offer of assistance. If you cannot, you will leave forever." Ha-Yun's eyes widened. "You're going to attack your own allies' colony just to test us." "Varesh has been marked for Vrexian expansion," the general said smoothly. "We were planning to take it anyway. The Quellans know this. Now they have a chance to keep it. If you are as capable as you claim, you will save the colony. If not, it was already lost." The Quellan speaker looked pained but said nothing. Taman understood immediately. The council was too weak to stop Vrexian expansion. They were letting the general do what he wanted in exchange for this test. If the humans succeeded, the council gained powerful allies. If the humans failed, the Vrexians got their colony anyway. "We accept the challenge," Captain Jiwan said through the speakers. "We will defend Varesh." "Excellent," the general said. His smile was cruel. "I will send 3 warships and a full battalion of ground forces. That is more than enough to take an undefended colony. Try not to die too quickly, mythical humans. I want this to be entertaining. Back aboard the Constellation, the crew moved quickly. They had 48 hours to reach Varesh and prepare defenses. Taemin called a meeting in the strategy room. We need to be realistic, he said, looking at the senior officers around the table. We have one ship and a crew of 200. The Vrexians are sending 3 warships and probably 1,000 ground troops. We need help from the colonists themselves. Sergeant Hyajin, the Marine commander, leaned back in her chair. She was a veteran of Earth's last major conflict, tough and experienced. Can the colonists fight? They're Quellans, Howun said. They're artists and scientists. Pacifists by nature. Most have never held a weapon. Then we teach them, Hyejin said simply. 48 hours isn't much, but it's enough to learn basics. We'll need volunteers. Lieutenant Kyung-soo raised his hand. What about air support? 3 Vrexian warships will have fighter craft. We have 6 fighters, said Commander Dae-jung, the air wing leader. We'll be outnumbered at least 3 to 1, probably more. Then we use surprise and speed, Kyung-soo said. The young pilot looked excited rather than afraid. Vrexians fly in formation. They're predictable, or not, Captain Ji-won nodded. Corporal Sung-ho, you'll handle defensive preparations on the ground. I want traps, barriers, anything that gives us an advantage. Sung-ho grinned. He was the demolitions expert, always smiling even when discussing explosives. I can work with that. The colony probably has industrial equipment we can repurpose. Dr. Ha-yun, Ji-won said, you'll coordinate with the colony leadership. Make them understand what's coming. And make them trust us, Ha-yun nodded, though she looked worried. That might be the hardest part. They've heard stories about humans their whole lives. Horror stories. Then change the story, Ji-won said. She stood up, placing her hands on the table. We have 2 days to turn a peaceful colony into a fortress. 2 days to train civilians into defenders. 2 days to prepare for a battle we're supposed to lose. The Vrexian general thinks this will be easy. He thinks we're just myths pretending to be real. Let's show him exactly how real we are. The Constellation jumped to faster-than-light travel, racing toward Varesh. In his quarters, Taemin reviewed everything they knew about Vrexian military tactics. They were strong but predictable. They relied on superior technology and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that used kinetic weapons. They had never fought humans before. He thought about Earth, billions of people who didn't even know this was happening yet. About the responsibility of representing an entire species. About the weight of this moment. Humanity had been a myth for 3,000 years. Now they had one chance to prove they were real. One battle to show the galaxy what humans could do. 2 days. 1 colony. Everything depending on the outcome. Taemin closed the files and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would be the longest day of his life. The Constellation dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Varesh. The planet was beautiful, covered in green forests and blue oceans. A single settlement spread across a valley near the equator, home to 10,000 Quellan civilians who had no idea what was coming. Taemin stood on the bridge as they descended through the atmosphere. Below, the colony looked peaceful. White buildings with curved roofs, gardens between structures, solar panels catching the morning sun. It looked like a place where people lived quiet, happy lives. In 48 hours, it would be a battlefield. The Constellation landed at the colony's small spaceport. As the crew disembarked, Taemin saw Quellans gathering to watch. They kept their distance, whispering to each other. Their large eyes showed fear and curiosity mixed together. Dr. Ha-un approached the colony's leaders. They were 3 elderly Quellans who had governed Varesh for decades. They looked at the humans like they were seeing ghosts. You are really humans? The eldest asked. Her name was Quellana. The humans from the old stories? We are, Ha-un said gently. And we are here to help you. But we need your cooperation. The Vrexian Empire is sending a force to take this colony. They will arrive in 2 days. The Quellans looked at each other in shock. But we have done nothing wrong, Quellana said. We have no military value. Why would they attack us? Because they can, Taemin said, walking up beside Ha-un. The Vrexians are expanding their empire. They don't need a reason beyond wanting your land. What can we do? Another leader asked. We have no weapons. No soldiers. We are artists and farmers, not warriors. Sergeant Hyejin stepped forward. She was shorter than most of the Quellans, but moved with the confidence of someone who had seen combat. You have us, and you have yourselves. We can teach you to fight. It won't be easy and it won't be pretty, but you can survive this if you're willing to try. The colony leaders called a meeting. Every adult Quellan gathered in the central plaza. Dr. Hayun stood on a platform and explained the situation in their language. She was careful and honest, not hiding the danger. We will not force anyone to fight, she said. But we need volunteers. We need people willing to defend their homes and families. The humans will teach you. They will fight alongside you. But we need your help. At first, no one moved. Then a young Quellan male stepped forward. I will fight, he said. His name was Vorin, and he was a teacher. This is my home. These are my students and my friends. I will not watch them be taken without resistance. Others followed. Another teacher. A farmer, an artist, a scientist. They were not soldiers, but they were brave. By the end of the hour, 300 Quellans had volunteered. Hayajin divided them into groups. She assigned human marines to train each group. They had less than 2 days to turn these civilians into something resembling a defensive force. It was not enough time, but it was what they had. Corporal Sung Ho walked through the colony with a team of engineers. He looked at the buildings, the roads, the surrounding terrain. His mind was already seeing the battlefield this would become. We'll set up defensive positions here and here, he said, pointing at 2 hills overlooking the settlement. Dig trenches along this line. The Vrexians will probably land here in this open area. We'll make them regret that choice. The human engineers worked with Quellan volunteers. They used mining equipment to dig trenches. They repositioned industrial machinery to create barriers. They set up equipment for traps and explosives. The peaceful colony slowly transformed into something else. On the second day, Lieutenant Kyung-soo and the other pilots prepared their fighters. The Constellation's 6 small craft sat on the landing pad, being armed and fueled. Kyung-soo ran his hand along his fighter's hull, checking every detail. You nervous? Asked another pilot, a woman named Mina. Terrified, Kyung-soo admitted with a smile. We're about to fight 3 warships with 6 fighters. The odds are ridiculous. Good thing we're not betting on odds then, Mina said. We're betting on skill. Commander Taiman spent both days coordinating everything. He moved between training groups, defensive positions, and planning sessions. He barely slept, running on coffee and determination. The responsibility weighed on him constantly. These people were trusting him with their lives. On the evening of the second day, he found Dr. Hayun sitting alone in one of the colony's gardens. She was writing in a journal, recording everything that was happening. How are the colonists? He asked, sitting beside her. Scared, Hayun said, but determined. A Quellan woman told me today that she never thought she would hold a weapon, but she has a daughter who is only 5 years old. She said she would do anything to protect her child. Taemin nodded slowly. We've put them in an impossible situation. No, Hayun said firmly. The Vrexians did that. We're giving them a chance. Without us, this colony would be taken without a fight. At least now they have hope. That night, ships appeared in orbit. 3 Vrexian warships, just as promised. They were massive, each one 3 times the size of the Constellation. Red lights glowed along their hulls. They looked like predators circling prey. The Constellation's sensors tracked them. Captain Ji-won stood on the bridge watching the displays. All hands to battle stations. Pilots prepare for launch. Ground teams to your positions. Taemin put on his combat armor and checked his weapon. It was a kinetic rifle, firing solid projectiles at high speed. Simple technology, but effective. Around him, other humans did the same. They moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role. Down in the colony, the Quellan volunteers took their positions. They looked frightened but stayed where they were told. Human Marines stood with them, offering encouragement and final instructions. Sergeant Haye Jin walked along the defensive line. Remember your training? She called out. Fire in short bursts. Aim for center mass. Stay low, stay calm. We're with you. In the sky above, the Vrexian ships began to descend. Smaller craft launched from their hangar bays. Fighters, sleek and deadly, dozens of them. They outnumbered the human fighters 6-1. All fighters launch, Commander Daejung ordered. Kyung-soo strapped into his cockpit and fired his engines. The fighter lifted off smoothly, rising into the morning sky. Around him, 5 other human fighters formed up. Below, the colony looked small and vulnerable. Stay loose, Daejung said over the radio. Don't engage in straight combat. Hit and run, make them chase you. Waste their ammunition. The Vrexian fighters came in fast. They flew in tight formations, orderly and predictable. Kyung-soo smiled. They fought like they were on parade. The humans fought like they were hunting. The first Vrexian made the mistake of following Kyung-soo into a steep dive. The alien pilot was good, staying on his tail, firing plasma bolts. But Kyung-soo had trained in worse conditions on Earth. He pulled up hard at the last second, just meters above the ground. The Vrexian hesitated, and in that moment Mina came from the side and destroyed the enemy fighter with a missile. "That's one," Mina said calmly. In orbit, the Vrexian warships began bombardment. Plasma cannons fired at the constellation. Ji-won ordered evasive maneuvers and the human ship danced between the attacks. Return fire from the constellation struck one warship's shields, but the shields held. On the ground, Taemin heard the explosions in the sky. The battle had begun. He looked at the Quellan defenders near him. They were watching the sky with wide eyes. "Remember," he said loud enough for them to hear, "the fight up there is not our fight. Let the pilots handle that. Our job is down here. When the Vrexians land, we make them wish they had stayed in orbit." Large transport ships descended from the Vrexian warships. They were heading for the open area Sung-ho had predicted. "Perfect. Hold positions," Hee-jin ordered. "Let them land. Wait for my signal." The transports touched down. Ramps lowered. Vrexian soldiers marched out in formation. They were huge, over 7 feet tall in powered armor. They carried plasma rifles and had personal shields. There were hundreds of them. The Vrexian commander probably thought this would be easy. An undefended colony, weak Quellans, maybe a handful of humans who didn't understand what they were facing. He was wrong. "Now," Hee-jin said calmly. Sung-ho triggered the first trap. Explosives hidden in the landing zone detonated in sequence. The carefully timed blasts threw Vrexian soldiers into the air. Their formations broke apart in confusion. Before they could recover, fire came from the defensive positions. Human kinetic weapons punched through Vrexian shields. The aliens had never faced solid projectiles before. Their shields were designed to stop plasma and lasers, not bullets moving at supersonic speeds. Vrexians fell. The others dove for cover, returning fire. Plasma bolts hit the trenches, scorching the earth. But the defenders stayed low, just as they had been taught. Taemin fired carefully, each shot aimed and deliberate. Beside him, a Quellan volunteer named Vorin fired with shaking hands. His first shots went wide, but his fifth shot hit a Vrexian in the leg joint of his armor. The alien went down. "Good shot," Taemin said. Vorin looked at his rifle in surprise, then nodded and kept firing. The battle spread across the colony. Vrexian soldiers tried to advance but ran into more traps. Mines. Collapsed buildings that funneled them into kill zones. Barriers that broke their formations. In the sky, Kyung-soo and his wing kept the Vrexian fighters busy. They were losing. The afternoon sun beat down on the battlefield. Smoke rose from destroyed buildings and burning vehicles. The sweet smell of the Quellan gardens mixed with the harsh scent of explosives and scorched earth. Taemin reloaded his rifle for the third time. Around him, the defensive line held, but barely. The Quellans were fighting well, better than he had expected. They had overcome their fear and found determination. But they were not soldiers, and the strain showed on their faces. A massive explosion shook the ground. Taemin looked up to see a Vrexian transport ship breaking apart in the sky, pieces falling like burning rain. Lieutenant Kyung-soo's voice came through his radio, breathless and excited. "That's one transport down, but we can't keep this up much longer." The human fighters were taking heavy damage. They had shot down several Vrexian craft, but there were just too many enemies. Mina's fighter was smoking badly. Another pilot had already ejected and was parachuting down to the colony. In orbit, Captain Ji-won watched the battle unfold. The constellation had taken hits from the Vrexian warships. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Shield generators running at 60%. They were losing this fight too, slowly being worn down. But the Vrexians were learning something important. These humans were not myths. They were real. And they fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. General Thaxel watched from his flagship. He had expected this battle to be over in an hour. Simple, easy, perhaps even boring. Instead, his forces were taking significant casualties. The colony should have fallen immediately. Instead, it held. "Send in the elite units," he ordered. New soldiers emerged from the remaining transport ships. These were different from the regular troops. Bigger, heavier armor, more advanced weapons. Cybernetically enhanced warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. They advanced with confidence, certain that nothing could stop them. Sergeant Hee-jin saw them coming. She recognized elite troops when she saw them. "Brace yourselves," she called to her unit. "Here comes the real fight." The elite Vrexians moved fast despite their size. They used tactics, covering each other, advancing under suppressing fire. They were professionals, not just soldiers, and they were heading straight for the main defensive line where Tai-min and his mixed human-Quellan force held position. "Hold your fire," Tai-min ordered. "Wait until they're close." The Vrexians came closer. 50 meters, 40-30, now. The defensive line erupted with fire. But the elite Vrexians had better shields. They absorbed the first volley and kept coming. They reached the trenches and jumped down, engaging in close combat. This was what they were built for, hand-to-hand fighting where their size and strength gave them advantage. A single elite Vrexian could tear through regular soldiers like paper, but humans were not regular soldiers. Hye-jin met the first Vrexian with her combat knife. She was a foot shorter than the alien, but she had trained for years in close-quarters combat. She ducked under his swing, found the weak point in his armor at the neck joint and struck hard. The Vrexian fell. Around her, other humans engaged the elite troops. The fighting was brutal and fast. No time to think, only react. Training and instinct taking over, Tai-min found himself facing a massive Vrexian. The alien swung at him with an armored fist. Tai-min rolled, came up behind the enemy, and fired his rifle at point-blank range into the back of the Vrexian's knee joint. The armor cracked. The alien stumbled. Tai-min fired again and the elite soldier went down. The Quellans watched in shock as humans fought the elite Vrexians on equal terms. Some even won. These aliens had heard stories about human violence, but seeing it was different. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, every action precise and deadly. Corporal Sung-ho appeared at the edge of the battle. "Fall back to second line," he shouted. "Now!" The humans and Quellans retreated quickly, leaving the trenches. The Vrexians, thinking they had broken through, rushed forward to pursue. Sung-ho triggered his final surprise. The entire trench line exploded. He had rigged it before the battle began, just in case. The blast caught dozens of Vrexians, throwing them back. Even the elite soldiers' armor could not protect them from explosions at that range. The Vrexian advance stalled. They had lost too many soldiers. The elite units were dead or injured. The humans and Quellans had retreated to prepared positions and were firing again. What should have been a simple conquest had become a nightmare. In the sky, the fighter battle was reaching its end. Kyung-soo's cockpit was filled with smoke. His targeting system was offline. One engine was dead, but he had one missile left. He saw a Vrexian bomber heading toward the colony center where civilians were sheltering. If that bomber released its payload, hundreds would die. "Mina," he said over the radio. "I'm going after the bomber." "You're too damaged," Mina replied. "Pull back. Can't. Too many people down there." Kyung-soo pushed his dying fighter to maximum speed. The Vrexian bomber was faster and undamaged, but Kyung-soo knew these skies better now. He came at the bomber from below, where their sensors had a blind spot. The Vrexian pilot didn't see him until it was too late. Kyung-soo fired his last missile. It struck the bomber's engine. The alien craft began to fall, but Kyung-soo was too close to the explosion. Shrapnel tore through his fighter's remaining wing. "Ejecting," he said calmly and punched the escape button. His fighter exploded behind him as he fell through the sky on his parachute. Below he could see the colony. Damaged but still standing, still fighting. On his flagship, General Thaxel realized he was losing. This was impossible. He had superior numbers, superior technology, superior soldiers. But the humans and their Quellan allies were winning anyway. "Recall all forces," he ordered through clenched teeth. Immediate withdrawal. The Vrexian soldiers began retreating to their transport ships. Those that could still move helped carry the wounded. They moved quickly, under fire the entire time, desperate to escape. The proud Vrexian military was running away from a single colony, defended by one human ship. As the transports lifted off, Tai-min lowered his rifle. Around him, the defenders were cheering. Quellans who had never held weapons before had helped drive off the Vrexian Empire. They hugged each other, cried, laughed. They had survived. Tai-min found Vorin sitting against a wall, exhausted. The Quellan teacher looked up and smiled weakly. "We did it." "We actually did it. You did it," Tai-min said. "You and your people. We just helped." Dr. Ha-yun walked through the aftermath, helping treat the wounded. Both human and Quellan injured lay together, being cared for by medics from both species. The Quellans, who had feared humans that morning, now trusted them completely. They had fought together, bled together, survived together. Captain G1 contacted the council station. This is Captain G1 of the Constellation. Varesh colony has been successfully defended. The Vrexian attack force has been repelled with heavy casualties. Request to address the council. In the council chamber, the representatives watched footage of the battle in stunned silence. They had observed everything through drones and satellites. They had seen one human ship and a handful of defenders hold off a force that should have easily conquered the colony. The Drellian representative, who had been terrified of humans before, now looked even more frightened. "They really are the warriors from the legends," she whispered. The foreign merchant who had mocked them now sat very quietly. The other species looked at each other with new understanding. Humanity was real, and they were dangerous. Only the Quellans looked pleased. Their colony had been saved. Their people had learned to fight, and they had found allies worth having. When Taemin and Dr. Hayun stood before the council again, the mood was completely different. No one questioned whether they were human. No one doubted their capabilities. The Quellan speaker stood. The council recognizes humanity as a legitimate species and welcomes them to galactic civilization. Your request for diplomatic recognition is granted. Your request for territorial rights in an uninhabited system is granted. The galaxy acknowledges that humanity is real, capable, and valued as allies. General Thaxel was not present. He was still aboard his flagship, dealing with the shame of defeat. But his absence spoke volumes. The Vrexians had been humiliated by a species they thought was a myth. Captain G1 appeared on the screen. "We thank the Council for their recognition. Earth looks forward to peaceful relations with all species. But let this be clear. We will not tolerate aggression against innocents. We will not stand by while empires crush the weak. If the Vrexians continue their expansion, they will find humanity standing in their way." It was not a threat. It was a promise. Over the next weeks, word of the battle spread across the galaxy. The story of Varesh became legend. The colony that was supposed to fall but didn't. The humans who turned myth into reality. The day the galaxy learned that humanity was not a cautionary tale about extinction, but a warning about underestimating the survivors. But in the Vrexian Empire, General Thaxel brooded. His shame had become rage. He would not accept this defeat. He would find Earth. He would destroy humanity at their source. He would show the galaxy that the Vrexians were still the supreme military power. The Council had recognized humanity, but the war was only beginning. 3 months had passed since the battle at Varesh. The galaxy had changed in those months. Humanity now had a seat on the Galactic Council. Trade agreements were being signed. Cultural exchanges were planned, and Earth's location was no longer a secret, shared with trusted allies as a gesture of good faith. Commander Taemin stood in his new office at the council station. He was an ambassador now, not just a military officer. Dr. Ha-Un worked across the hall, establishing the first interspecies university. They saw each other often, planning the future of human-alien relations. But beneath the peaceful surface, tension grew. The Vrexian Empire had not forgiven their defeat. Ships moved along their borders. Military production increased. Intelligence reports suggested they were planning something big. On Earth, humanity prepared. The Constellation had returned home briefly, and when it left again, it brought friends. 20 human warships now patrolled Council space. They were smaller than Vrexian vessels, but faster and more maneuverable. Each ship carried weapons designed to fight the enemies humanity had learned about. Sergeant Hai Jin had stayed in the galaxy after Varesh. She now trained mixed-species military units, teaching them human combat tactics. Her students came from all 6 species, eager to learn from the warriors who had defeated the Vrexians. Lieutenant Kyung-Soo had recovered from his ejection and returned to flight status. He was now a squadron leader, commanding both human and alien pilots. The Quellan who flew beside him no longer saw humans as myths or monsters. They saw them as brothers and sisters in arms. Captain Ji-Wan commanded the Earth Defense Fleet from her new flagship, the Indomitable. She spent her days training with alien commanders, sharing tactics and learning about their capabilities. The Council forces had never worked together effectively before. Ji-Wan was changing that. Then, on a quiet morning, the alarms rang. Vrexian fleet detected, the sensor officer reported. 50 warships entering Council space. Taemin ran to the Council chamber. The representatives were already gathering, panic on their faces. 50 warships was the largest military action in 3,000 years. The Council's combined forces numbered only 30 ships plus the 20 human vessels. General Thaxel appeared on the main screen. His face showed satisfaction and rage mixed together. "People of the Council," he said, "you made a grave mistake when you welcomed humanity. You chose to ally with myths and legends instead of respecting the true power in this galaxy. Now you will learn the cost of that choice." "We will not be intimidated," the Quellan speaker said, though her voice shook slightly. "You should be," Thaxel replied. "I am coming for your precious humans. I will find their homeworld. I will show you what happens to species that defy the Vrexian Empire. This ends today." The transmission cut off. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some species wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to hide. A few wanted to surrender the humans to avoid war. Taimin stood and spoke loudly. "We do not run. We do not surrender. We fight. We cannot win," a Drellian representative said. 50 Vrexian warships will destroy us." "Perhaps," Taimin said. "Or perhaps General Thaxel is about to learn the same lesson he learned at Varesh. Do not underestimate humanity." Captain G1's voice came through the speakers. "Earth Defense Fleet is moving to intercept. All Council forces form up on our position. Today we show the Vrexians what united resistance looks like." The battle would take place near Varesh. The colony had become a symbol and both sides knew it. The Vrexians wanted to erase their defeat. The humans wanted to protect what they had saved. The two fleets met in space above the planet. 50 Vrexian warships faced 50 Allied vessels. But the Allied ships were mixed types, different species with different technologies trying to work together. The Vrexians were unified, experienced, and confident. General Thaxel smiled on his command bridge. "Fire at will. Target the human ships first." Plasma cannons blazed across the darkness. The battle began in earnest. Ships on both sides took damage. Explosions lit up the space between them. But something was different this time. The Council forces did not fight as separate species. They fought as one fleet. Quellan ships used their advanced sensors to coordinate targeting. Foreign ships provided electronic warfare, disrupting Vrexian communications. The humans led the charge, their kinetic weapons punching through shields. Taimin watched from the Council station with Dr. Ha'un beside him. He had wanted to be in the battle, but his role now was different. He was a symbol, not just a soldier. He represented humanity's commitment to the galaxy. "They're fighting together," Ha'un said with wonder. "The Council forces are actually coordinating." "Captain Jiwan has been training them for months," Taimin said, "teaching them to see each other as allies instead of competitors." In space, Kyung-Soo led a mixed squadron of fighters. Humans, Quellans, and even a few brave foreigners flew together. They engaged Vrexian fighter craft, and this time the numbers were more even. The aliens had learned human tactics. They flew with unpredictability and aggression that shocked the Vrexians. Sergeant Haijin commanded a boarding team. When a Vrexian cruiser was disabled, she led her team through the breach. They were a mix of species trained to fight together. They moved through the ship, securing it section by section. The Vrexians fought hard but were overwhelmed by the coordinated assault. Captain Jiwan commanded from the Indomitable's bridge. She watched the tactical displays, seeing the battle unfold. "All ships target the Vrexian flagship. Concentrate fire." 20 human ships and 30 Council vessels all turned their weapons on General Thaxel's massive flagship. The shields held it first, absorbing incredible amounts of damage. But shields could only take so much. A Quellan ship fired a new weapon they had developed with human help. A pulse that temporarily disrupted shield generators. For just a moment, the flagship's shields failed. In that moment, the Indomitable fired its main railgun, a solid tungsten projectile weighing several tons, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. It hit the Vrexian flagship's engine section and tore through the hull like paper. The flagship began to drift, engines dead, systems failing. General Thaxel watched his bridge fill with smoke and sparks. His perfect plan was falling apart. "The United Fleet was defeating his forces. All ships retreat," he ordered. But retreating was not easy under concentrated fire. The Vrexian fleet broke formation, each ship trying to escape. The Allied forces pursued, destroying ships that could not reach faster than light speeds fast enough. Of the 50 Vrexian ships that had entered the battle, only 28 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. It was the worst military defeat the Vrexian Empire had suffered in centuries. General Thaxel's damaged flagship limped away, its proud general reduced to fleeing for his life. The humans and their allies had won. In the council chamber, the representatives sat in stunned silence. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had actually won. The Quellan speaker stood with tears on her blue face. Today we learned something important. United, we are stronger than we knew. Divided, we would have fallen. Humanity did not just bring military strength to the council. They brought unity. Taman received a transmission from Earth. Admiral Park appeared on his screen, smiling. Well done, Ambassador. You have shown the galaxy what humanity can do. But more importantly, you showed them what they can do when they work together. Over the following weeks, the galaxy changed again. The Vrexian Empire, humiliated and defeated, retreated to its core systems. Their expansion stopped. Other species in the council began working together more closely, building on the unity they had found in battle. Humanity became more than allies. They became friends and partners. Cultural exchanges began. Human students attended alien universities. Alien students came to Earth. Trade flourished. Technology was shared. Dr. Ha'un's Interspecies University opened with students from all 7 species. The first lesson she taught was history. Not the history of any single species, but the history of the galaxy. How they had lived in fear for so long. How they had believed in isolation and separation. How humanity had helped them find something better. Sergeant Haijin continued training mixed species military units. But now it was not just about preparing for the next battle. It was about building trust between species. Her former students became instructors themselves, spreading human tactics across the galaxy. Lieutenant Kyung-soo became a flight instructor at the new Joint Military Academy. He taught young pilots from every species, showing them that skill mattered more than what world you came from. His best students were not humans, but a young Quellan who flew with incredible grace and a foreign, whose small size made them perfect for tight maneuvers. Captain Jiwon returned to Earth briefly, welcomed as a hero. But she did not stay long. The galaxy needed her. The Council had appointed her supreme commander of the Joint Military Forces. The first time in history that all species had agreed on unified military leadership. Taemin remained as ambassador, working with the Council every day. He helped negotiate treaties, resolve disputes, and build the framework for lasting peace. Sometimes he thought about that first moment, walking into the council chamber with Dr. Ha'un, representing a species the galaxy thought was extinct. So much had changed since then.